What's going on, guys? My name's Spencer, better known as Ninja Wire, and I'm coming at you today with a video response on the nose Battlefield 1 Too Authentic for Women. Now, I have written out a gigantic sheet of facts about this video because it's about Battlefield 1 and why there isn't any female characters played in it. And there's a lot of things that make sense as to why there's no female characters in it. Now, I don't want to belittle these two, but I'm going to, because it needs to happen. Now, when you start up a channel where you're doing some sort of entertainment news of some sort, whether it be gaming or anything else, and I'm not exactly 100% sure what they do, but this episode was solely on gaming and the female characters of gaming and why it's important that it happens and blah, blah, blah. Now, its main topic was Battlefield 1, and it dwelled into a couple other things that I'll get into later as well. But the whole thing is, I want to try to make this short and sweet. This is my third take of this video, and the last two have been like 20 fucking minutes long, and I'd like to at least cut that in half. Absolutely. So, we're going to get into this very, very quickly. But no, from what I can understand, they've done no research whatsoever when it comes down to their videos, at least this one in particular. They've done absolutely no fucking research, because the girl opens up with, well, we are a little bit in the frustration fucking department because of all this bullshit, because there's no fucking female playable characters in the Battlefield 1 multiplayer. Why are you in a tizzy about it? And then she proceeds to say, I know women served a lot, and they were fighting on the front lines in World War I and blah, blah, blah. Now, she didn't necessarily say a number, and she isn't necessarily wrong, but when it comes down to the actual demographic of it and why there would be men and no women, it's this. In 1917, the only country throughout the entire, well, I wouldn't say throughout the entire, it is the only country throughout the entire war that actually sent any women to the front lines was Russia. Now, there was many other nations that created battalions of strictly female soldiers, segregating them from the males for obvious reasons. If you're stuck in a trench for 3 fucking years, you're horny as hell. Regardless, in 1917, the Battalion of Death was created. Now, the intention of these 5,000 women that Russia had deployed into this Battalion of Death was to create an intimidation tactic against the Germans to make them afraid of this female battalion because they were the strongest and they were best. And the battalion actually really kicked ass. They did a very good job. But later in 1917, it was disbanded because it didn't do what the Russians were expecting it to do. It wasn't as intimidating as they expected it to be, considering the Russians were just intimidating as fuck in the first place. So, ta-da! Anyway, yeah, because they weren't intimidating. That's basically how it went. So, with that said, only 5,000, and I did my research on this, and I tried looking around for about an hour to see whether or not I could find any more female soldiers who fought on the front line, and from what I can find, only 5,000 ever served on the front line. Now we're going to take a look at the male contribution to the combat war effort. 65 million men, and this is going, and when I say I'm following my numbers, I'm following on all sides. Whether it be German, Prussian, fucking so on and so forth. Everybody, whatever faction fought in the First World War, I am looking into. And I'm trying to find the best numbers I can on female serve. 65 million men served. 5,000 women served on the front line. These are the two numbers I came up with. So I decided to put them together. Well, what percentage is 5,000 compared to 65 million? This is what I came up with. 0.0076%. Not even half of a percent. That's extremely low. So to have females running around in a multiplayer setting would be extremely unrealistic. Absolutely. The number's right there, man. Right there. See that? 0.076%. 0.0076%. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, these are just jot notes. Don't worry about it. So, I wanted to kind of touch on the combat of today, and not to mention, women are flooding the battlefields now, and they're kicking ass because they always have. There's always been angry women who want to hold guns and shoot at bad guys, and you know what? Fuck all the power to them. It's awesome. And that goes for pretty much every country. Unless you're, fucking Middle Eastern, because they're still assholes. But it's their culture, and I respect it. Now, I decided to dwell into this a little bit more, because I initially thought, I'm a huge history buff, and I initially thought that more females did fight in the war as well. And I was extremely surprised to find supplies. I was extremely surprised to only find 5,000 fought throughout the entire war. I was like, okay, well, one, I've done my research in a video response. Why the fuck can't you do your research for an actual, full-on video, edited and so on YouTube? Especially when you're relatively big. They're not huge, but they're relatively big. And they're called The Know. And they don't know. It's kind of odd. It's kind of like The View, and they've got only a really set point of view. I guess it's kind of a vague name, The View. Not the overly opinionated, biased, feministic view. It's a much better name for it. But anyway, I decided to do a demographic of video games, because in order for a video game to sell properly, you have to do demographics of video games to see what the fuck your target market is before you can even be on to market this thing and sell it. So, okay, well, we've got, let's say Sims, for an instance, and then you've got Battlefield, for instance. Well, Battlefield, obviously, you've got first-person shooter fans. Sims, you've got simulation fans. Well, what is your basis on here? So this is what I did for Battlefield, because I decided, okay, well, if I was going to sell this game, how the hell would I go about it? And I actually found some pretty interesting information. So I decided the demographic for just gaming in general, that is all platforms, PC, PS4, Xbox One, so on. 50-50. It is pretty well a 50-50 split. I didn't write down the exact numbers because there's no point to it. It's pretty much an even 50-50 split down the middle. I think it was like 3% difference on one side or the other, which would probably be mostly male, and I think it was. It was like 53% to 47%. And I was blown away. I was like, really? 50-50%? That's 50-50 split. That's amazing. I can't believe that. So I decided, well, I gotta delve this obviously deeper, because it's an even split down the middle for gamers in general, and you can't really narrow down demographic to one single, demographic of gamers. There's people who prefer RPGs and first-person shooters and tactical RTSs, MMORPGs, MOBAs, everything, right? There's just tons of fucking genres. So I narrowed it down to just Battlefield. 97% are male. 97% of the players of Battlefield are, in fact, male. So that just gives you your demographic right there. Now, the girl brought up a good point, and I think she said somewhere along 37% of gamers who play MOBAs, MMORPGs, so on and so forth, choose female avatars. Now, that makes sense, because some people just do that. And a lot of the time in video games, like, for instance, Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, a female character was very good because of one perk. What was it called? The Black Widow, I think it was? I think it was called Black Widow. I'm not 100%. It's been a while since I played them. I've been playing Battlefield 4. There was confirmed bachelor for males. But anyway, the Black Widow perk worked really, really well because, one, you could flirt with female characters, and two, you had special, unique dialogue with male characters, and it gave you a 10% more damage to male players, and the majority of the game itself was in fact male NPCs you were fighting, so it actually gave you an advantage to the game, which was phenomenal. So in that sense there, it made sense to play as a female character. In a lot of cases it does. It may be more beneficial for a certain player than it is another, so we'll put it at that. But when it comes down to Battlefield, you don't have special tactics per person. It comes down to the class you're in. Whether, for Battlefield 4 anyway, you've got, assault, support, recon, and engineer. Those are your four things. It doesn't matter if you're male or female, your fucking role is identical regardless of gender. So that's pretty much exactly what it is in Battlefield. It's a first-person shooter. It's supposed to be historically accurate, which apparently they've done an extremely good job with. They have gone over different weapons and different things and different they've added in different prototypes of things, so scopes and stuff, because we're going to be dropping down from a modern shooter like Battlefield 4 and Battlefield Hardline, where you're getting ACOG scopes, reflexes, and so on, to World War I, where that really didn't ever exist. You had scopes that were very, very basic at that point in time because they were almost kind of new to the whole thing, and stuff like that. So there were different prototypes that were actually created So I think Battlefield's, or DICE's whole take on it was to take something that had actually been created, not necessarily in field use, and research it a bit and create it into their game to make the optics and customization of your weapons a little bit better. And that's kind of what the game's all about, just customization of your weapons. There was never really a gigantic character customization throughout any Battlefield ever. It was kind of just, here's your static character. Why don't you just camo? Fuck, go ahead. It doesn't matter if it's a him or a her. Who fucking cares? My whole thing is to leave it at that. Now, the one thing that really made me mad, and I'm already halfway past my time, fuck. we're gonna wrap this up quickly. The one thing that really drove me nuts through this video was the fact that they had, one, no knowledge on the First World War whatsoever. They were just kind of making shit up. Females definitely fought. Definitely fought. No. Well, yeah, but barely. Not even 0.5%. 0.0076%. Not even 0.5%. Nowhere close to 0.5%. You're like, anyway, doesn't matter. You're fucking far off from it. So yeah, females technically did fight the war, but not as many as you're believing. And I watched another video, which is kind of like, what the fuck is going on with this video? And he commented on it saying like, yeah, it would be odd to see a woman in a realistic time within a lobby of, say, 64 players, because that would have never happened. You would have never seen it, because, one, these battalions were segregated. That's how it was. And as the blacks and whites were segregated in battalions during the Second World War. You had black-only battalions for military, flight sections and so on, tank crews and whatever, and then whites only. And that's how it was segregated. So to have a game like, say, a World War II game based on tankers, and you'd have a black guy and a white guy, it would have rarely ever happened. So it would have been kind of odd to add into a video game, such as adding female characters into Battlefield 1. It is strange because the fucking numbers say that not even 0.5%, not even half of 0.5% were fucking, even combat efficient, that even saw combat. It's right there. The numbers are right there. If you don't believe me, do the math yourself. Research it and do the math yourself, because that's what I came up with. And if you get any little variation in number, you're not going to get too far off from that. I don't even think you're going to hit 0.5% of the people who fought that were male. So this is exactly why you're not getting this. Anyway, her comparison to video games such as Call of Duty Ghosts, Call of Duty Black Ops 3, and Star Wars Battlefront drove me fucking insane. You were taking a look at 3 games that are known to be futuristic. One, we don't have jetpacks. No, we don't. Half of those guns don't exist. None of those guns in that game exist. They are nothing. They're not a thing. They literally don't exist. Call of Duty fucking Ghosts, also yet again futuristic. A little less futuristic than, say, Black Ops 3 and Star Wars, by absolutely, but it's still futuristic. It's still in a alternate time frame, whereas Battlefield 1 is in a historical time frame, a real war that was fought, where 65 million men served, or 65 million some odd people, including civilian casualties and so on, died, and you got 5,000 females who served. That's it. The facts are right there, because this literally happened. It was real. It's a real thing. Crazy to think, eh? It's amazing what 2 hours of research will get you. Phenomenal. And I gotta fit all this into this tiny video. It's gonna turn out to be fucking 17 minutes long. Fuck's sakes. Anyway, stupid. Futuristic games, not historical, no comparison. That point is moot. Now, the one thing that really drove me nuts is that they were dwelling. This is it for the Battlefield 1 thing. So we're going to go. I'm not even going to touch into the rest of the video. I'm going to briefly summarize, and then I'm going to get into one more thing. So to summarize this, Battlefield 1 is a historical game based on true events that actually happened. Now, whereas your women did fight, it's not as much as you'd like to believe they did, that they had this gigantic role. They didn't. Women were more likely to be nurses and more likely to have support roles during the war, which they had a gigantic part of. Research it. Actually do your research. Guarantee you, hour and a half online, you can find out a lot about female role in the First World War. And you'll find out about the Battalion of Death, which was absolutely phenomenal. I think they were such a cool idea, and it sucks they were disbanded after a year, because they're really not all that well known. But the whole thing is that only 5,000 women served in the First World War. That's it. 5,000 of them served on the front line. That's it. Only 5,000. Okay? 0.0076% combat contribution. Shit. It's nothing. So there's your real reason as to why females are going to be put into this game. Second reason, your demographic for video games might be split 50-50, but the demographic for Battlefield itself as a genre, as a series, is 97% male. 97% male play Battlefield. It's phenomenal. I can't believe it's overwhelming. It's not to say that women obviously don't play it, but only 3% of them do, because a lot of women don't prefer first-person shooters. It's just how it is. It's rare. I've played a lot of video games in my lifetime. Thousands of hours. Thousands upon thousands of hours. I've wasted life playing video games. I love it. That's how I roll. But my whole thing is that I have rarely come across female players. It is very rare you come across it. But they will play a certain type of game. So, if you're actually going to add into the male genre and people who are playing this, like myself, for the realism of it, because World War I isn't something that's very touched on anymore. Even in school, it was briefly touched on and passed away. And I've talked to historians and other things about it, and it's a very, very interesting time in the story of a lot of people's fucking culture. It shaped America's military, shaped our military. It was a new type of fighting style we weren't used to. It was something that was unbelievably revolutionary for a lot of people. So, with all this said, and all the fact that the don't know, and that it's not too authentic for women, it's perfectly authentic for everybody. So your title, stupid. Two, spelled T-O. Or in this case, T-O-O. Two authentic. Four is not a number. You know, F-O-R, women. Fuck. English. Anyway, the don't know. Because the no doesn't do the research whatsoever. Now, I imagine hours would have been put into editing and so on and so forth, and no one sat there. So we're saying complete bullshit, because I don't know. Because I just made it up in my mind. I just spewed it out. Yeah, women obviously fought in the war. Obviously. So why wouldn't they be in the video game? 5,000! 0.0076%! What it is. Anyway, when it comes down to it, I do understand the female roles within video games. A lot of them. And you've got, such as fucking perfect example. I'm going to leave it at one example only. That's Ellie in The Last of Us. She was the best female role I've ever heard of, ever seen into a video game. It was just so gripping. Oh, God, it was heart-wrenching, that whole fucking game. Just unbelievable. One, it was scary, then got you thrilled and your whole body moving, and you never wanted it to end, and unfortunately it ended, and it was just terrible, but the whole time you're playing it, it was just amazing, because I can't remember the guy's name for the fucking life of me. It drives me insane. Anyway, you got your main character, okay, and then you've got Ellie, and your main character in the beginning of the game, when all this infection's happening, loses his daughter. She's killed by a soldier who just randomly shoots because he's scared and everything else, and you're like, oh my God, and it made you cry because he went through so much just to protect her and all this other shit, and you're like, oh, why the fuck is this happening? And then Ellie comes along, and it's almost like the long-lost daughter you never had, and just very sad about it, and just getting himself together, and, she just played such a strong support role for him. And she herself and him, I think, in that game were very equal when it comes down to main characters, because they were both so intriguing within their background stories and so on and so forth, and just continuing on through the game. So that right there is just a perfect example as to why females in video games are good, but they have their spot. And Battlefield 1 just isn't their spot. Now, I tried to make this less than 20 minutes, but unfortunately, I fucked that up. So whatever, it's going to be 20 minutes long. I really do. Hope you guys enjoy. I've been Spencer. I am aka Ninja Wire. Have a good one, guys. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I will see you guys later. Bye.